So I will get started just while Phil is still getting mic'd up. My name's Ciera Clayton, and I'm from BioPhorum. I'm a global change facilitator there, where I work in the IT, Digital and Data Forum. And today I'm associated on stage with Olivia Gannon from Lonza, who is the Associate Director of Automation. And we also have Hamm from Merck, as you can see here, Global Lead for Manufacturing Execution in Healthcare. So why do we have Lonza and Merck and BioPhorum on stage? They are here today representing our MES of the Future team. I've just realized I don't have a clicker.
I think this works.
Thank you. So they're here to represent our MES of the Future team within BioPhorum. So just to explain who BioPhorum are. The clicker does not want to be my friend today. I'll explain while we're getting that working. So BioPhorum is a global biomanufacturing organization, and we're comprised, thank you, Phil. We are comprised of both suppliers and biomanufacturers. So that's suppliers of materials, suppliers of software systems, equipment suppliers, etc. Within BioPhorum, we have nearly 8,000 subject matter experts across the organization. We have 150 different member companies, 2 of which are Lonza and Merck. But today we are talking about the MES of the Future program. So we sit within the IT forum, and as I mentioned before, our team comprised of supply partners. So that's your Emersons, Dassault, Corber, etc. of the world, Aizon, who are also here. And then we have our manufacturers, so Lonza, Merck, Lilly, Novo, etc. And basically together we talk about different industry problems, challenges that are going on in these spaces, things like AI, how do we overcome this, how do we engage with regulatory bodies, etc. on that, to push our industry forward and create a synchronized change across the industry. So a lot of the stuff that we develop, and we have developed quite a lot in MES of the Future, is put out there free to download for non-members as well, so that we can help create that synchronized change across the industry and bring everybody on the journey with us. So it's not just the conversations we get to have internally, but also you get to avail of that as well. So from this MES of the Future team that I'm the facilitator for, we have produced quite a lot of content. Some of you might have heard of the MES of the Future manifesto, came out in 2022. Since then, we have discussed papers on integration, so integration with LIMS, MES, ERP, etc. We have presented on our priority data paper, so understanding what your priority data is in MES. Last year, we presented at this conference, at Pharma MES, on our mapping the pathways to MES in the cloud. So if you're interested in any of that stuff, please do download the papers. They're for free, and I have it on my person as well. The QR codes will be up at the end of this as well. And then lastly, what we've recently produced is our report on that manifesto. So out of all these solutions that we've said that the suppliers needed to develop and put out there, what has actually happened since we released that paper? And it gives you a current understanding of what's happening in the industry at the minute. So if you have MES and you're interested in any of that stuff, please do go and download it. Today we're going to talk about the Manufacturing Execution Systems Industry Challenges and Enablers paper. It's been a discussion that we've been having for the last 9 months or so within the team. The paper isn't released yet. It's out next week. So this is the sneak peek for everybody. This is the first view of what it is that we've been talking about. So we're going to talk about that today. And then just to let you know that coming soon, we have a transition and adoption playbook due out in early 2026. And we actually have a workshop running in the Pharma MES space today at 4:30. It's called Are You Ready for MES? Please do come and join us if you're interested in talking about digital maturity and business value. Will be there. And if you see your name of your company on this list, that means you're a member of the IT forum. It's free for you to join in any of the conversations. Come and talk to me after if you see your name there and you want to understand how we work. So today, the interesting thing, we are going to talk about an overview of our challenges and future vision for manufacturing execution. In this presentation, and I will populate this table in a second, we're going to talk about some of the common challenges that we have across manufacturing execution. The team have developed what I would say is a bold future vision of where we want these challenges to go, how we want to see the future within our industry and what it is that we're trying to achieve. There are metrics. I'm not putting it up yet, so I can explain it. There are metrics against each of these, but it's not prescriptive per company. So if we say we want to reduce something by 25%, your 25% might look very different to somebody else's 25%. That's why we're using percentages instead of monetary or time-orientated goals. So in the paper, we talk about different challenges, such as overly expensive total cost of ownership and delayed time to value realization. This is a problem I think everybody has. What we would like to see is a reduced total cost of ownership up to 50%. So it might be 50% for one company, depending on what way your organization is set up. Maybe you could only get that reduced by 5% because you've done a lot of work in that space already. But we think it's realistic that most companies could get up to 50% reduction in this. This is one of the ones that we're going to talk about in more depth today. We've got long implementation times. We want to see that being reduced in the region of 25 to 50%. We want it to be quicker to implement for new installs and new capabilities. We are also experiencing disconnected systems and fragmented batch review. This is the one that Brian mentioned earlier. So we want to see quality by design. We want to see review by exception and automated release by up to 90% reduction there. So quite fast. Data locked in proprietary applications being difficult to extract. This is one of the things that we know is holding us back from AI and how we make sure our data is ready for that transition. So we want to see data exposure being built into all of our solutions as a standard. We want to see more harmonization, more standardization here, and really getting to think about what does AI-ready data look like. Significant planned and unplanned downtime, a pet peeve of everybody's, I'm sure. And we often talk about this desire to get down to near zero downtime. So it's obviously unrealistic to have zero, but we'd like to get it down as close as we could. Limited or no ability to add new functions and capabilities. This is whenever you're trying to install a new functionality, a new capability, you have to revalidate the entire system. It's very hard for you to add things on in a modular way. It's hard for us to do validation, etc., which is also linked back to point number 5. We want to see that time to value being reduced from years back down to months. And finally, and in no particular order, integration complexity. We need seamless integration. We want that time to integrate being reduced by at least 50%. So a lot of these challenges, although they are separated out here, these 7 problem statements, they are intrinsically connected to each other as well. And you'll see that throughout the presentation as we talk about 3 of them. So the ones we're focusing on today, and I'm going to pass over to Phil, is our total cost of ownership. Olivia is going to take us through disconnected systems, and then we're going to end on significant planned and unplanned downtime. They're going to talk to you about those challenges a bit more depth, what the vision is, and what our enablers are, so how we can move the needle forward towards this vision as an industry, things that we need to discuss, things that we might want to implement. I will make a point of saying we are not discussing specific solutions in this. The paper does not talk about specific solutions, but instead drives conversation for how we can move forward towards these visions. Phil.
Thank you, Ciera. So I know we're getting close to lunchtime, so bear with me. I promise you this is going to happen pretty quickly, but hopefully it's quite interesting. And of course, quite a few of the members here actually participated as well to this paper. So if you do feel we're missing a strong point, jump up, for instance, and say, please, let's do it. Right, so I'm taking you through the first one, challenge 1, high cost, delayed time to value, high cost total ownership, difficulty demonstrating return on investment. So long story short, any company that's been involved in MES deployments know it takes longer than you expect it to take, it costs more than you expect it to cost, and of course, your sponsors are saying, where's our return on investment along the way, right? So it's a really tough sell. The first time, they're all very positive and naive about this. The second time around, they go, whoa, how are we going to do this better this time, right? And then it means MES is turning into a cost center. So instead of seeing it as a project or giving us a digital foundation, they see it as a cost center, money sinking in there, but what are we really getting out of it? We understand the benefits it brings, but how do we show it? How do we really work with the return on investment? So If we look at the key components contributing to it, we've really got three. Number one is during implementation. We have to put the big clusters in place. You've got infrastructure, complicated licensing. You've got a complicated, typically old environment you have to move into your digital environment. So that's quite a costly experience as it is. When we talk about adoption, it's the governance mechanisms you have to put in place, and then the change control you have to do after you've deployed it. So it's also difficult to get the right expertise at this stage. Thirdly, lifecycle management. And I think this is where the second round companies are not so naive anymore, right? Because you've got hardware that's got a certain lifecycle management, you've got operating systems, you've got the MES platform that's got a certain lifecycle management, and you have to get all of this aligned somehow along the way as well. Once you've been through it, and especially after your lifecycle management, you understand the total cost. And that's what makes people hesitant about it. Because by the time you go into lifecycle management, you haven't yet really seen your return on investment from the initial implementation. So it can be very tricky to sell. When we talk about this, the future vision, as Ciera mentioned, is to reduce the total cost of ownership and accelerate the time to value. As we mentioned as well, this is not about giving you the answers. This is by giving enablers that allows us in the future to develop solutions in this area, right? So typically the first one is standardization and harmonization. I think most of the big companies have been through this. Smaller companies believe, well, you know, we can do it decentralized. We don't need a central organization that can help us to put this together. But if we talk about standardized harmonization, we're saying, let's use the architecture, let's reuse templates. Let's see how we can deploy it more easily using simple authoring tools, for instance, right? So harmonization, first deployment, once you can harmonize multiple sites, it's a lot easier for you to deploy, less costly, and you get that return on investment a lot quicker as well. Embedded lifecycle management, right? So this is a bit of a fiasco, lifecycle management, because every time you currently have to do an upgrade, you've got a lot of validation, you've got a lot of downtime. People you speak to over here goes, an upgrade, it takes us a few weeks. From my experience, you're not talking about a few weeks, you're talking a few months, if not years, to do an upgrade. Because if you've got your technology stack, you have to upgrade before you can do your application upgrade. And before you can do a technology stack upgrade, you need to do an infrastructure upgrade underneath it. A lot of money there. So modern architecture, smaller bits, upgrading continuously in the background, improved operational efficiency and lower life cycle expenses. Key to get this right as well. Next one, automation and tooling. We spoke earlier about AI and we're a bit skeptical about it. But as the vendors come with AI tools, it can add a lot of value of getting you from older versions into newer versions. Taking your batch records, your EBRs you currently have, and transforming that automatically into MBRs. Now, most of the vendors here will say, yes, we can do it, and we can do it next year, and it'll work like a charm. I haven't seen it yet. However, if we can get it in such a way that it's trusted, it can save a lot of the complexity and cost, talking about upgrade and deployment time. That will allow faster time to value, and of course, automation and reuse, minimize manual efforts and reduce reliance on expensive MES experts. Because as you all probably know as well, you start in-house, the best intentions, you run out of time, you get external expertise involved, especially MBR and validation, the cost starts going through the roof. And then you are forever reliant on that external expert to also maintain your MBRs or to change them as you go forward. Right, so a bit of a nightmare there. The last enabler is risk management. Now, if I say CSV, I'm sure all of you sort of have sleepless nights, and CSV is not a quick topic. CSV means we do everything, a full risk analysis on it. And rightfully so, it's got its place. However, if we start introducing risk-based validation, we save a lot of time along the way, especially in GXP environments. Focus on what's mandatory for GXP as a starting point when you do your risk analysis. This really allows us to save a lot of time, enabling that future vision we spoke, accelerating the return on investment. A different way of maybe visualizing this, we tend to spend a lot of time on the bottom three layers, your network hardware, your operating system, your MES application, connectivity, etc. And you spend millions of euros on that point. You think about how can you do it as efficiently as possible. But if you do that as efficiently as possible, you've still got zero, zero business benefit. Because what unlocks the business benefit is really your expertise, process, and application. So how do you get the best out of your MBRs to activate the benefits that your company need at the end of the day? As an example, quality. If your quality team does not understand the value MES can bring, and they're empowered to maximize those benefits, you're never going to get to your benefits or value, because these are all different teams. Right, so that means, if I map it back to what we said, standardization, harmonization, think about how do you work to get the maximum benefits out of the application, because this is not so obvious. Most companies focus on the bottom three, but they do not spend the time on the middle governance and global structures. Embedded lifecycle management. We have got these applications out there running. How do you get it as simple as possible, the lifecycle behind it? And this is a challenge. There are different vendors out there as well. Historically, it's a nightmare. Currently, it's a nightmare as well. As an example, I spent time with one of our sites last week in China, and they're going, well, you're just doing an upgrade of a MES system. How can it be so expensive? How come you're telling me, Philip, it's going to be 2 or 3 years to do it? So now you have to explain that to a site director who's already heavily invested in MES 5 years ago, that he's got to do all of this again, right? And then you go, well, it's actually more complicated to upgrade it than to install a whole new system because you have to take this mass with you, clean it up, reformulate it, revalidate, requalify, blah, 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 before you can move forward. Difficult discussions to have when the pockets are quite empty. Okay. We spoke about automation and tooling, so automate as much as possible. Use AI where it comes. So I'm very happy when AI comes and it helps us with this moving between versions. It's simple, pop a MBR in, GMBR pops out on the other side. Absolute fantastic idea. But let's see how that works in practice. And then lastly, we spoke briefly about risk management. There's got to be a lot happening around risk management. You have to think about this in the industry. How can we really simplify it? Because it's costing a lot of time and resources in this area. Validation and the activities around it can be up to about 1/3 of your overall project cost. So have you thought about how can we do it easier? Has the industry and the vendors thought about how can they help to do that continuously? Definitely an option or an area to focus on in the future. From my side, thank you. Takeaway, look at the paper. We go in a bit more detail, of course, in this point. But I hand you over to Olivia to take us through the next challenge. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. So now moving on to challenge 3 and disconnected systems. So here we're talking about the risks and inefficiencies associated with the disconnected systems, which we still see across our manufacturing environments, and the resulting fragmented batch reviews. So our critical data is typically scattered across multiple platforms, forcing us to do manual data entries. Then our teams, particularly our quality teams, are forced to manually gather and reconcile the data, resulting in lengthy batch review processes. So what is the impact and what are the typical challenges that we're seeing here? All of the manual entries are increasing the risk of transcription errors, which is increasing our compliance burden and operational burden. Quality teams then are, due to the lack of data integration, are forced to review every exhaustive transaction instead of focusing on exceptions. This all in turn prevents adoption of quality automatic checks and real-time decision making. And finally then, fragmented workflows end up ultimately delaying your product release and reducing operational agility and efficiency. So what is the future vision here? The future vision for disconnected systems and fragmented batch review is quality by design, review by exception, and automatic release. There are some key shifts in quality mindsets and technology that are required to be able to enable this future vision. And some of the key enablers are starting off with your system integration, getting access to your key critical data, which again is going to improve your data integrity, your compliance assurance, and also works towards building trust in your system-led decision. So this is a key enabler, key baseline enabler. Enabling access then to this critical data works in turn to enable your review by exception, which also supports your faster batch release. Eliminating your manual data entries, this in turn eliminates the need for manual reviews, which and then is also bringing you one step closer to review by exception and automatic batch record closure. Finally then, more modern quality and validation processes, for example, CSA or risk-based approaches. These are all enabling you to be able to leverage your vendor quality release frameworks and therefore resulting in no or minimal duplication of validation efforts. All of these are bringing you one step closer then to the future vision and helping you to get to automatic batch record closure and reducing as much as possible your time to release. Moving on then to downtime. So challenge 5, as I said, is related to downtime. There are, two different key parts of downtime. You've got your planned MES updates, which typically require lengthy full system shutdowns. And as Phil alluded to earlier, that can be anything from hours for, patching, or it can be days, weeks, and even several months for major version upgrades. Unplanned outages then disrupt your operations without warning, so they typically can vary in duration, depending on the occurrence. The impact here then on manufacturing for planned downtime, the long upgrade windows required due to the lack of modularity in the system architecture, and limited or even unverified recovery options. Due to, I would say, traditional or conservative historical validation processes, there is an extensive validation burden and operational burden, which is extending, exponentially the downtime windows required. All of this results in a delay or a reluctance in adoption of new capabilities, which of course in turn slows down innovation. For unplanned downtime then, of course, this potentially interrupts your batch execution and therefore risks product loss. Typically, recovery is manual, resource intensive, and takes all of your skilled SMEs into firefighting recovery mode, which all then, ultimately undermines overall confidence in your system reliability. So now I'm going to hand back over to Phil, who's going to take us through the future vision and some of the enablers.
Thank you, Olivia. So we all like downtime, right? It means we can drink coffee and stand by the water machine and everyone's shouting and stressing. No. Okay, we don't. So of course the future vision is near zero disruption for operations. Okay, so it sounds idyllic. And I do think this message is quite clear to some of our vendors. So there's been a lot of development, even with the smaller startups, in the area of how do we minimize disruption in the organization. Now, enablers, there's a whole bunch of them. We've listed 10 of them here, and you'll see some of the good old topics popping up, like cloud and all of that. But I'll probably focus on just 4 of them, with automated troubleshooting and healing being the first one. I think there's a lot of development in this area where applications are getting more intelligent, and they realize when something's going wrong in the application, and they take certain actions to fix that as well. For instance, your MES system falls over, it reboots, it comes back up, boom. There are batch records stuck in the queues, there's communication not flowing. Why is the system not picking up that there's a problem and automatically restarting those modules and getting it up and running, for instance, right? So this doesn't have to be rocket science. This is the system just being able to monitor itself and make sure that it works. Part of this as well, and there's been a lot of focus on it, for instance, is high availability. So most of the big vendors now offer you high availability. Your one cluster falls over, boom, it moves over to the second cluster, and off you go until the other one comes back up. It synchronizes, no one knew anything. But this is also good for your plain maintenance. You can drop your one cluster, upgrade it, get it ready, bring it back up, drop your other cluster, and off you go in the future. So ideally, this should make it a lot simpler, but there still needs to be a lot of focus on it to make it transparent for your productions at the end of the day. Now, out-of-the-box solutions with minimal customizations. I'm yet to meet a company that doesn't have customizations, right? And customizations are a nightmare Because taking them forward means your vendor needs to reverse engineer all your customizations and get them working, and it's every time a cost and a high validation impact for you as an organization. So of course, one of the enablers sits a bit with the customer as well as with the vendor. You have to challenge your customizations to make your own life easier. But the vendor has to include functionalities that's required as part of the product instead of customizing it continuously. Risk-based validation, I'm not going to talk about it again. It's a horse that's been flogged to death, yet we don't really see it out there. Right? So everyone talks about, CSA, CSA. But do you use it in your organization? When you look at your MES system, how do you know where to start? Do you have any guidance how to do that? So there needs to be a lot of work done in that area. Robust business continuity plan. I'm sure if you ask any of your companies, we've got a BCP, right? Fantastic. Have you tested your BCP recently? How did you test your BCP? Do your staff know what's expected of them during your BCP? Do they know to which printer to go to print out the PDFs? Do you trial it occasionally and run with it? It makes your unplanned outages a lot simpler if you really spend time on your business continuity plan, even your planned. Because if you know you need to have downtime for a very good reason, and you know you can rely on your business continuity plan, it makes your life a lot simpler, right? But I don't think most companies are there. And once again, with the vendors, do you make it easy to print out the MBR to be used as a business continuity plan? Right, I'm sure they're all going to say yes, but I have not yet seen that. When we try to print it out, it's a fiasco normally because it can't deal with the bridging in your MBRs and your whole process correctly. You cannot visually display it, right? So I see people shaking heads. It's a problem to do this properly. So it means you have to do your own thing instead of the vendor going, this is how, and off we go. So just 4 key areas. Like I said, dive into the white paper. We go into more details. And with that, I hand back to Ciera. But I'm sure we're all happy to take any questions afterwards and during the next few days.
Yeah, so to Phil's point, I cannot stress how much more detail there is in the white paper than what we've presented today. It was very hard to squeeze it into this presentation. You will have noticed as well throughout that there was a lot of themes. We're talking a lot about risk management. We've mentioned validation and CSA, I don't know how many times, and even those 3 points. And as somebody who works with global biomanufacturing companies every single day and over 30, maybe 40 different companies, I can tell you that everybody wants to do it, and there are not that many people who have managed to work out how to do computer software assurance at the minute. So CSA, validation. So if you're interested in the topic, obviously please do come and talk to me. And I know Brian's well versed in it, so go and talk to this guy. But yeah, there's a lot of links throughout all of those challenges. And I know from talking to our members that most people who have read the paper's peer review have said, yes, these are the challenges we're facing. And what we're trying to do is drive conversation in these areas. We've given some action levers with those enablers in the paper. We've wrote about the benefits, etc. But now we need to move on to that next stage. And how do we transition and adopt? Which we will be talking about today in our workshop at 4:30, just to shamelessly plug that again. So if you have any questions for us, please do ask. I have a sheet that has all these QR codes on it, so please come and talk to me at the end if you want access to any of them. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions? Before you guys,
It's maybe more a comment than a question because as I don't know if you know, but I've been part of the discussion for, the last 2 years about the different challenges. And I think from a customer perspective, it's very nice and reassuring to see that most customers are struggling with the same things. So, but one of those challenges that you presented today, I think it was number 3, about the scattered systems and batch reviewing. I don't know if I understood your enablers and your comments correctly, but it sounds a little bit like you're suggesting to sort of interface data in the MES space and enabling instant release and all those things. And I just want to say that we have in Novo Nordisk have had that idea, I would say, for a long, long time. I think if you remember last year, Ken and I, we actually made a presentation about some of the challenges we were facing with the very, very automated factories that we are implementing these days. And we are actually, I think, moving away from that thought because it's too difficult to interface all the data to the MES system if the data comes from a level 2 system, where it's, in some cases, 95% of the batch data comes from those systems. It's simply not really possible to interface it to MES. So we are actually thinking maybe some other reporting tool. So, but it's definitely a challenge. The solution is not so clear. I thought it when we did the presentation, we thought we would have a good answer to how to do this, and it's just
Not.
It's
I
not.
think it's
not
no.
even there yet.
I don't think it's not black and white, and I think it's the key critical data. And like you said, sometimes it's even very difficult and so challenging to get that key critical data out that the burden of doing that is not maybe you're not getting the return on that, and it's not feasible. So there are many other platforms out there then that can aggregate this data, etc. So I guess what we're saying here is more in relation to it's as much as you can, but it's enabling the review by exception. So it's enabling as much as you need to do for your batch record closure as much as possible within MES, supplemented by other means as well.
Yeah, and it depends a lot on the systems in place and the situation.
And your design, exactly.
And then I would just say that I think AI and data have some potential we are still looking into and not
early
have
days.
really unlocked yet. So
But for that comment, you get a
Interesting
chocolate.
space.
The challenge
Any other
number 4
questions
here.
or-
Challenge number 4 here: data locked in proprietary applications. One of the enablers for it is the exploration of AI tools. Rather than us being specific and suggesting a specific solution, it's like you need to think about this. But another thing that we need to consider is what is the business value that you're trying to actually achieve. So not just trying to unlock all of your data, understand where all your data comes from in every single place in your organization. That is a mammoth task. It's really understanding what is the business value that my organization is trying to achieve. What are the capabilities I need to have to get there? And how do I do that do I need a certain level of digital maturity? Do I need AI? Maybe not. Maybe you don't need a level 4 sort of mature site. Maybe you only need a level 2 to achieve what it is that you want from your business value. So that's one of the reasons why you might think, 25 to 50%, that's a very broad metric. Yeah, because every single organization is different, and it really depends on what you are trying to do within your organization and how you look at these. So please, the paper will be out next week, and if you want a copy of it, come and talk to me, and I'll take your email address to make sure that you see it. But it's on the BioPhorum website as of the 1st of October.
And I think to your point, Rebecca, as well, and to Ciera, it's about the business value. So if your business value does not mean that you need to heavily integrate or you don't need to bring together all of this data into your MES, then that's not a priority for you. So it really is, there is no black and white solutions here. And I think that's what we've all learned over the many years we've been trying to do this.
Great, thank you. And as they transition away, I'd like to point out one particular thing that Phil said a few times, and Ciera did too. Starting to see vendors enable stuff, right? Like, we are incredibly reliant upon our vendors to change to support us. There was, I think the first time I did one of these conferences for Pharma MES, 7-8 years ago, I'll never forget it. A gentleman from Biogen stood up, and he basically pleaded with the MES manufacturers, like, you have to make your systems easier to deploy, more modular, simpler, quicker, faster, because they're brutally expensive and costly to implement. And 7-8 years later, we are moving significantly in that direction. Go back to your companies and pressure your vendors, right? It is ludicrous to me that right now, if I want to get data out of my Miltenny system, I have to stick a thumb drive into the system and mail it to Sweden to have them analyze it and send it back to me. It's ridiculous. But I'm one voice at a small company in the US. Please.
Yeah, but I think that's also the beauty of a forum like BioPhorum, right?
And that
because
was
the vendors are
second.
present there, most of the vendors, and they can take that home, right? So they get these messages, not just coming customer by customer isolated, but there's a, and if you look at MES of the future, the other paper that was mentioned, there's a strong message for vendors. And the vendors, some take it to heart, and they really develop the functionality based on that, and we can see it. And that's why some of the new guys are a lot more agile, and they become a lot more attractive all of a sudden than some of the bigger monolithic vendors. So also a warning for vendors to a certain degree.
Can I just make one final note, and then we'll let the next presenters come, just to say that when we did the MES of the Future Manifesto, the first paper we released, it has 120 solutions that were suggested by the biomanufacturers to the supply partners to ask them to please put these things in your system. We need these things implemented. This Advanced MES Solutions paper is the report on that. So it explains to you which of those solutions are now implemented by a minority, a moderation, or a majority of suppliers, and what the high and low priorities are from a vendor perspective. So it will help you understand what's actually available in the market today, so that you can see where you're at, and you can use that paper as a framework to have those conversations with your vendors, many of which are involved in BioPhorum, and the paper was written by the software vendors. There's 8 software vendors listed in this paper. So yeah, it's all very useful, all this documentation, so please do come and talk to us. And I will point out some people that are in our team. We've got Marion is in our team, we've got Rebecca and Ken from our team, Mandar and Martin at the back are also in our team. Is there anybody else from MES? Beata is also from our team from MSD. So lots of people for you to talk to today from BioPhorum. Thank you. Do you have a question?
Sorry, yeah, you probed a question. In your professional opinion,
I know what it's about.
So in your professional opinion, he spoke a little bit about pressuring the vendors to, really bring the functionality we're looking for. And the business continuity has been something that was heavily promised. You can print out a batch record and that's your continuity, but we're not really realizing that just yet. So is a higher value maybe in pressuring the vendors to work on that, or kind of look more in-house to creating our own type of supplemental BCP instead of kind of going the vendor path, just saying, okay, this isn't working, and find our own solutions.
So I don't know which vendor you're referring to, but we went down the customization route, which is not ideal, but we also used the forum. So there's normally a community with most of the vendors now, where you give your input and you get the opportunity to vote on it as customers, and then they put it into the next release. So I'll also invite you to use that mechanism. And the power lies with all the different companies at the end of the day to decide on what's a priority, because the vendors have a limited pipeline what they can supply. And that's where it's important to contribute to it and to vote on these things that are also pains on your side. Otherwise, you have to customize, and it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
The other thing, just to explain, is from a MES of the Future team perspective, where obviously we have that consensus from a huge majority of the industry, is a lot of the vendors have what it is that you're asking for. A lot of the solutions are available, but we are not ready as an organization to implement that. So we've put a lot of pressure on them. We can see from the manifesto to the report that's come out, there's been a huge amount of advancement made in the solutions that are available. And to Phil's point, a lot of newcomers and everything in this space as well that have a lot of solutions that users are asking for. But we really need to focus internally as well, say, okay, how do we make ourselves ready as an organization? How do we manage our change management? How do we talk to our stakeholders? How do we measure business value and track that and make sure that what we're asking for is one, achievable, that we did achieve it, and that it gave us what we wanted. So as a team now, we are focused on that transition side of it, and trying to give people guidance in that area rather than only just focusing on the solutions. It's the how do we implement these? How do we change the mindset in our organizations to be able to make this shift? And on that, I'm really sorry. We will.
Thank you.
All right. I think at this point we do have to move on. We're We have one more presentation before lunch. Yeah.